Many people who enjoy birds will tell you that spring is the best time of year for bird watching. A major reason why millions of birders eagerly await the arrival of spring is thanks to the phenomenon of spring migration. If you've ever shown an interest in birds, then you've certainly heard about migration, but not everyone is familiar with what migration is exactly.
That's okay, because in this video, I'm going to describe spring migration in detail. I'll tell you when spring migration occurs, what species participate in spring bird migration, and above all, why birds go to all the trouble of migrating in the first place. Let's get started.
When you think about spring, you probably consider the months of March, April, and May. While this is when the spring season takes place, spring bird migration is an even bigger window of time. The onset of migration will be different every year depending on how severe winter was in the upper reaches of the northern hemisphere. Waterfowl are usually the first birds to push north every year, but they typically don't start to move until snow and ice retreat from lakes and fields north of their wintering grounds. Historically, most ducks and geese would begin their spring migrations in late February or early March, but a warming climate has allowed these birds to begin migrating north as early as the beginning of February in some years. After waterfowl kick off migration, this spectacle continues for the next several months as billions of birds travel from their wintering habitat to their breeding grounds. Spring migration even continues well into the summer, with birds like semi-palmated sandpipers and white-rumped sandpipers not arriving at their breeding grounds until mid-June in some cases.
So, spring migration may last for more than 4 months. Peak migration typically occurs from late April to mid-May as songbirds migrate in the billions.
Just about any type of bird that you can think of will have at least some member of its family migrate during spring. Ducks, geese, swans, and cranes are some of the earliest spring migrants, followed closely by songbirds like crows, thrushes such as robins and bluebirds, and blackbirds like red-winged blackbirds and grackles. Birds of prey like eagles, hawks, and falcons also migrate, with eagles and several hawk species migrating north in March, and long-distance migrants like Swainson's hawks and broad-winged hawks migrating in mid to late April. The migration of songbirds and shorebirds picks up steam in early April before exploding into a frenzy of activity by the month's end. The month of May is a birder's dream, with a fantastic array of birds moving north through most of the month, until activity finally dies down towards the end of May. Migratory birds spend their winters in places where food and habitat are more available compared to the winter conditions on their breeding ranges. Some migratory birds may only have a short distance to go to reach their breeding grounds. For instance, American crows may only migrate a couple hundred miles each year. However, there are hundreds of species that are considered to be long-distance migrants. These incredible birds may migrate thousands of miles annually between their wintering grounds and breeding territories. On the extreme end of the spectrum, some shorebirds like buff-breasted sandpipers may cover more than 10,000 miles from their wintering habitat in Argentina to their Arctic breeding territory.
Birds put their lives on the line during spring migration, overcoming numerous threats ranging from bad weather to collisions with structures in transit. So why do birds do it? Why do birds go to all the trouble of migrating when there are seemingly so many dangers along their migratory routes? Wouldn't it be easier for migratory birds to just stay in the tropics and breed there instead?
Although the tropics have tremendous amounts of food and habitat for birds, there is also exceptional competition for birds there. Conversely, extensive habitat exists in places like Canada's boreal forest, but relatively few birds breed here because of how inhospitable the habitat is for most in winter. However, those birds that do breed here get to enjoy an abundance of resources and secure prime spots for raising their young. The Arctic tundra is another example of a habitat where few creatures can survive in winter, yet billions of birds breed here because of the massive amounts of habitat and ample food. At this point, migration is instinctual for the species that have been doing it for thousands of generations. Many birds have a strong desire that compels them to return to where they were born in future breeding seasons, which further guarantees that migration in birds will continue for as long as birds exist. Of course, migrating birds consistently jeopardize their safety for the chance to reproduce. The opportunity to pass on their genes to future generations outweighs the risks that birds encounter on migration, but this doesn't make the threats any less significant. Migrating birds face more threats now than ever before. Pollution and climate change degrade and alter the habitat that birds so desperately need to support their travels.
Perhaps the biggest threat to migratory birds is the destruction of their habitats. Forests, wetlands, grasslands, and tundra are constantly being cleared to make way for development, leaving behind unfamiliar landscapes that offer no prospect of nourishment or rest for weary birds.
Yes, habitat loss is a real danger for migrating birds. These creatures rely on stopover sites to replenish all the energy that they burn during their journeys. It is therefore vitally important that birds not only have habitat on their breeding and wintering grounds, but also along their migratory routes.
This brings me to what you can do to help the migratory birds on your property. Anyone who owns a little bit of land can turn their yard into a haven for birds. Yes, even those who have a tiny yard can make big changes to help the birds they love.
Planting a few native trees can offer birds food and a place to rest during migration. Better yet, plant a cluster of shrubs that can offer birds plenty of protection from predators and make them feel safe in an unfamiliar environment. Although ornamental trees and shrubs often look dazzling, it's best to stick to native plants if you want to maximize the good that you can do for birds. After all, the birds that migrate through your area evolved with a native flora near you, so they'll be used to eating the insects that visit these plants. Adding a water feature is another positive thing that can be done for migrants. Whether you offer a bird bath or a flowing pond or stream, birds will be thirsty after their travels, so they would doubtlessly appreciate a chance to drink in your yard. Those who have a little space to work with can also plant native grasses and flowers. These plants offer nectar to species like hummingbirds, while giving seeds and shelter to sparrows and other songbirds. No matter how small your yard, there is always something you can do to help native birds in your area.
I hope you've enjoyed this introduction to spring bird migration. It truly is a magical time of year. Any birder will tell you that they're bummed when the spring season is over. If you like this content, please be sure to leave a thumbs up and consider subscribing to my channel. I routinely make fun bird videos, so I would love if you join my flock. That's all for now. This is Connor from WorldWidebirder, signing off.